tangata tiriti, no mai haere mai ki tēnei hui, tēnei I roto I te whare o te kaunihira. Kia ora koutou, welcome today. Before we get started, we're just going to go through the emergency procedures. So if you'd just like to have a quick read up there, and we'll get moving. So we'll just get our karakia to start off with the hui. Please feel free to join in. Inoi tātou. Kia tau ngā manaakitanga a te mea ngaro ki runga I ki tēnā e tātou. Kia mahia te hua maka kihi. Kia toi te kupu, toi te mana, toi te aroha, toi te reo Māori. Kia tūturu, kia whakamaua, kia tēnā, hui e, tae ki e. Kia ora everybody. Are there any apologies? Deputy Mayor Lewis.
Gabrielle Tupu for lateness, and I believe the Mayor as well for lateness.
We won't need to move motion, so we'll move on to public comment. First up, I'll ask M. Lewis. Kia ora, M. Welcome. So M is Executive Director, Nico Foundation, and you'll be speaking to 12A of the Director's Report. And you have a presentation.
Kia ora koutou, thank you so much for having us today. I'm also joined by Lindy Young, our Funding and Relationships Manager. I'm really here to introduce Nico Foundation. Many of you will know who we are. We were founded in 1991. We are the region's community foundation. Our mission is to raise local generosity for local benefit, and we see an opportunity to align ourselves with Council around really sort of amplifying the impact of local generosity and what it can do for our communities. Some stats up there, I won't run through all of them. We are now nearly the guardian of $40 million, and we have over 80 funds, all of which have different remits, so all supporting the communities in different ways. We also work alongside the Tyndall Foundation as their grant maker locally, and we are trustee of the Boren and Mark Deniachek Foundation. Our model is a simple one. Every gift that we receive, we invest and grow. So we're growing an asset for the future. It's not just about giving now, it's actually strategic, future-focused giving. And if we can harness that, then we know that communities will have what they need, not just now, but in the future. And we work with a range of people. It's not just generous individuals that want to give through Nico Foundation. We also work with for-purpose organisations, trustees of trusts who are looking for a different option. We believe that our role isn't just about giving money out and raising money. It's actually about strengthening the for-purpose sector for the benefit of our community. So that might come through thought leadership. It might be through working with for-purpose organisations to really harness and grow their impact. So many different ways that we can work with you, but a real opportunity to align what we're all trying to do. I just want to pass over to Lindy very briefly just to talk about how we make grants, because I think there's a real opportunity for us to be working together. Oh, hang on.
Flashing red light. Kia ora koutou. I'm Lindy from Nico Foundation. I'm the Funding and Relationships Manager. So when we look at our grant-making community, we use a layered approach to that. Primarily and most importantly, we connect with community. So I spend a lot of time out and about with organisations, listening, learning about current need, emerging need. Also, I work quite closely with other funders, peers, and we co-fund together to make our small amounts of funding go further. Alongside that, we have adopted the Sustainable Development Goals, and we use those as another equity lens when we're reviewing applications. Due diligence, of course, is important, but we're informed, along with financials and things like that, with knowledge from our local committee volunteers. Organisations don't have to be registered with charity services. We can work alongside them to still facilitate grant making. What else? Do you want to go to the next slide? Thank you. So because our funds are primarily donor advised, we do have funding in the Hutt, and we do work with other funders, as I said, to co-fund. So last year we got 80,000 into Lower Hutt Central, and the average grant was 6,727. And those grants were across things like youth, kaupapa Māori organisations, older generations, conservation and health. So,
Just wrap it up in the next minute. Kia ora.
Was that our bell for the 3 minutes?
It is, yeah. Thank you. Very timely. I know that there's a few people in the gallery listening intently, so kia ora. He pātai ngā mema. Any questions? Karen, Deputy Councillor Morgan.
Kia ora. Thank you. It's very exciting because, as we know right now, oh my goodness, money is everything to enable so much opportunity and things to happen. So just a couple of little questions that you can expand on. Have you worked with any councils before? And we see the grants there, and you've sort of described a little bit of what that looks like. Could you give some examples of how we could work together or what that might look like, possibly, if you've got any thoughts right now?
Kia ora. We have worked with councils. We can't fund council directly, obviously. We've co-funded with Porirua City Council to get a Rainbow Youth organisation off the ground, and that was alongside DIA and Wellington Community Fund, so all four of us chipped in to get that off the ground. What was the other part of the question? Sorry.
Oh, no, it's good. I'm on live again. No, really, that was really good just to see what you've done sort of practically with councils, because I think, you know, there's potentially some great opportunities. So it's like, yeah, to start the discussions, I guess, because it sounds super exciting. So ngā mihi kōrua, thank you so much for coming in.
Councillor Parkin.
Kia ora, thank you for coming in and present. Yeah, very much appreciated by the volunteer sector and the work that you're doing. You mentioned in terms of your funding, the average amount funded. What's the smallest amount? What's the largest amount that you've funded in the last year?
The smallest amount we've ever funded is $500, and it made this huge difference to a small community in the Wairarapa. It enabled a lot of older generations to get together in somebody's house and have concerts put on for them, and that gave them connection to each other. It was sort of during COVID times. And the largest grant, probably $30,000 for a fund that names a number of organisations specialising in equipment for older generation care homes and dementia support. That's probably the largest I can think of. You're not correcting me. There we go.
Councillor Shaw.
Thank you for coming in today, and your generosity is fantastic, really appreciated. Question I have is that we do have a few impoverished communities within our region, and great volunteers working at grassroots level in challenging and difficult circumstances. Do you allow grants without incorporation? I see we have bypassed the charitable trust status, but what about if clubs aren't incorporated?
The majority of our applications do come from charitable organisations with charity services numbers or incorporation. Recently, we managed to fund this incredible kaupapa in Porirua by, it's not something that we do very often, but it was this amazing thing for rangatahi, with people coming to speak with lived experiences with mental health crisis, suicide, gang, embedment and things like that. And so we managed to get that one off the ground by paying suppliers direct to facilitate the expo or the day, and all the service providers were there at the same time for the rangatahi to talk to. That was great. It was very unusual though. Just putting that out there.
So I guess what I'm thinking of is, you know, the little rugby league club or softball club that have a few volunteers to run really important stuff, and a small committee, volunteers who do everything. You know, I'm just thinking about trying to make it a little bit easier for them to apply for funding without the need for incorporation and a set of financial books at the end of a financial year. Do you allow that, or is it?
Probably. Alongside what we can and can't grant. Unfortunately, we don't have any funding for sport because our funds are donor advised, but what we are able to do is help people with, point them in the right direction for people that can help them with that. Not particularly useful for you because you've obviously got something in mind, but we don't have sport. Yeah. And I appreciate that there's a lot of power in sport. And there's a lot more than just the game. So, but yeah, we can help people find support elsewhere. Kia ora.
Thank you, Councillor Barrett.
Kia ora korua. Could you please tell me what you do provide funding for? Have you got a general?
Yeah, so it's incredibly broad. As Lindy touched on, we are donor advised, which means that we have over 80 funds. They all act like small trusts, but they're under the NICO umbrella. So really it's what our donors are motivated to give to. We are seeing a huge shift since COVID, cost of living, inflation, where our donors are really motivated to support grassroots, to be really addressing the needs in the community whilst also keeping their funds really broad. So it really is a range of kind of community need, from youth in Kapiti to women's organisations to, you know, it's really across the board. And other than sport, where we're very limited, we do have a large remit of funds. So anyone can go online and have a look. There's the full list up there. But what we do is we encourage organisations to apply to NICO, and we do that sort of hard work behind the scenes. It's like a big jigsaw puzzle, matching application with fund.
If there's no more questions, thank you, Em and Lindy. So the main area to get in touch with you is through the website?
Can also provide my details and Lindy's details if there's any further questions or anyone wants to connect. Yeah.
Lovely. We will get your details and pass them on to anyone who may be interested. Thank you both for taking time to come in. Kia ora.
Kia ora.
I'll ask Desire and Gemma from Youth Inspire to come forward. Haere ki mua. Kia ora. Welcome. Do you have 3 minutes?
Kia ora, tēnā koutou. My name is Desiree. I'm the General Manager of Youth Inspire. We have come here today to firstly tautoko the continued support that we have through our Taita and Pōmari Neighbourhood Coordinator, and also through our communities at Polaris Trust. We're also come here to sit at the table to have a conversation about strengthening our partnership with the council, especially around our sort of underserved and most vulnerable young people that are looking for employment opportunities within the Hutt Valley. I've also brought my colleague Gemma Turney, who's our Senior Youth Advisor, who's been with us for about 3 years and works directly with the young people.
So we run employment programs for our young people from 15 up to 25 who aren't currently engaged in any employment or training. High needs complex youth, we're seeing a lot more support required in the justice system, which we're stepping in to support with as well. Slightly out of our remit, but we're doing what we can to support them because we're seeing a real need there. And like Des said, helping our young people into employment, referring on to mental health services. I acknowledge some of our housing providers are here as well. We work closely with them too. Lots of our young people are experiencing all sorts of barriers that we're supporting them with. So thank you for having us. And also acknowledging some friendly faces around the table who have and continue to support us. Yes. So thank you coming to our graduations and providing direct employment for our young people too. So thank you.
I think what we're currently seeing at the moment, and through a lot of our employment programs that are shaped purely by our funding, our government funding, and that is we're working with a lot of job seekers. But what we're seeing time and time again is that preventative work that really needs to happen. We're having a lot of young people turn up to our doors that are, under the age of 18 that don't qualify for a social benefit. So we And unfortunately, just the way that our programs are designed at the moment, we can't always help them. So it's actually looking at ways that we can branch out into that preventative intervention work with our young people. We are working with Nainai College and Taita College and potentially Upper Hutt College to do an in-school program through education to employment. So we're still just having conversations with the colleges at this point to try and get into that prevention stage and put them into some positive pathways before they sort of look at entering into that social benefit world. Kia ora.
I can acknowledge as well, we work closely with MSD. They are our key funder at the moment. We have a great relationship with them, but yeah, would love to just continue strengthening relationship with council. We love working with our young people. It's our bread and butter. Anything we can do to support them and just, yeah, work closely just so people know a little bit more about what we do is always great. Yeah.
Turn the mic.
Kia ora, Desiree and Gemma. Thank you for coming in. I'll pass over. He pātai tōna mema, Councillor Shaw.
Thank you for the amazing work that you do. Every time I go to your graduation, I seem to get something stuck in my eye. But you do wonderful work. Question I have of you is, where do you mostly draw your students from?
Currently, most of our referrals come directly from MSD. That has changed in recent times. So it used to be we would self-recruit for our young people. Just currently, yeah, we've got a particularly large amount of support from MSD in terms of direct referrals through to programs. Through the school programs, the young people are sort of nominated by the school teachers and the environment at the school. So yeah, but at the moment, mainly MSD.
Councillor Morgan.
Kia ora. Just like to acknowledge the incredible work that you do. I know firsthand that you are lifesavers and changing lives. So, ana mihi, thank you so much. My question is, employment's a big, there's a lot to that piece, right? It's not just simple. So have you got something specific that you think we could really engage with you to help support you that is really tangible, that would really actually add a plus value to what you do on top of what you do?
We're always looking for entry-level opportunities. I'll be frank, I think a lot of people make assumptions about our young people and the type of work that they're looking for, whereas lots of them are highly skilled, looking for administrative work, looking for, it's not just sort of entry-level labouring positions, so any roles that are particularly like customer-facing within Walter Nash Centre, for example, the young people are very capable of those roles, so I think just giving them a chance and showing that they can prove themselves, even giving them sort of short-term opportunities. Once they've got work experience, that opens up a lot of other employment for them. So we work to do that in our programs, but just any opportunities, businesses that people know of. Yeah, there's already people around this table who directly come to us for work experience and employment, and it's hugely valuable. Just getting something on their CV to get them started, and then we can facilitate moving them into longer term employment. So yeah, anything and everything is an option for them. Yeah, hugely talented, and yeah, there's always someone to fit a role, so yeah.
One follow-up question, Councillor Morgan.
Thank you. Just a quick question. Have you linked with the Chamber of Commerce at all and presented?
So I've had multiple conversations with the Chamber of Commerce and around their education to employment as well. We are looking at strengthening those business partners within the Hutt Valley to sort of entice them to come on and give our young people an opportunity to show their skills and what they are capable of. With our programs, we get them work ready, you know, and we know it's not a linear approach to just putting them into employment. So we have to look after every other aspect of them, and we are there also to provide that in-work support. So it's we don't just throw them into employment and then, oh, good, you've got it. You know, we're there to support them through that journey, but also support our business partners. Yeah, so we probably need to have a few more conversations with the Hutt Valley Chamber of Commerce, but what we have done in the past, or in the last year that I've been here, is strengthened that relationship. Yeah.
Any last questions? Kia ora, korua. A common theme, and I note that you're doing a lot more mahi, which is outside of what you're contracted for, and that has been common feedback that we are getting in the last few months. So ngā mihi to you both and to Youth Inspire for that mahi. I note you're speaking to the rangatahi report that's coming up, and that you've got good connections with the council. So be good to see what more we can do come out of that, and particularly as we've got our new rangatahi lead on board. So kia ora korua. Thank you. So that's all we have for public comment. So I'll just ask if we have any conflicts of interest. No. So we're going to take precedence of business, which means we're just going to move around a couple of the items because we've got people in the gallery today that we won't talk to you with sitting through to the end. So in accordance with Standing Order 10.4, I call precedence of business to item 6, Annual Providers Update on Homeless Strategy, and item 9, Emergency Management Update from 1 April 2024 to September 2024. So we will move to our first item, which is the Annual Providers Update on the Homeless Strategy. It's page 12 of the agenda. I'll ask Lauren Coe, Acting Head of Connected Communities, to speak to the item and for the support from the providers to come forward as well. Kia ora.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and kia ora koutou katoa. Today I'm here to present the Annual Providers Update on the Te Awa Kairangi ki Tai Lower Hutt Homelessness Strategy. This report summarises the work that our kaupapa partners, Tuatahi Centre, Community Law and Takiti Mai, who provide vital services under our homelessness strategy. Their focus remains on preventing homelessness, facilitating access to stable housing and offering housing advice and advocacy. This report outlines the progress, key trends, successes and challenges they have faced over the past year. In the past year, we've continued to see pressures on housing and homelessness, exacerbated by rising rental costs, reduced emergency housing options and an increased need for support services. Our kaupapa partners remain pivotal to addressing these challenges by providing early intervention, stable housing access and housing advocacy services. This report also notes the impact of recent government policy changes on both the providers and whānau, highlighting how these shifts have influenced service delivery. Finally, next year's updates will reflect a revised reporting framework, aiming to capture more detailed data for the outcomes of our whānau and the specific housing needs across our community, and an overview of what these insights and updated census data tells us about homelessness in the Hutt. Today, I'm joined by representatives from each of our organisations, Oscar from Community Law, Linda from Takiti Mai, and Melba from Tuatahi. I'm happy to take any questions. Kia ora.
Kia ora, thank you for that, Lauren. Before I open it up for questions to the members, I'll ask the three providers if you've got anything to add.
Kia ora tātou. Thank you for having us today. My name is Linda Ryan. I represent Takiti Mai Te Ata Whānau Water Collective Homelessness Prevention Services. We're a wraparound service approach, including mental health and budgeting services. And for us today, we'd like to comment really on the escalation of need. It's something we're seeing in our community based on the number of whānau that are coming through our services, and the crisis point for them is escalating with less ability to service that with our emergency housing reductions. Kia ora.
Talofa lava. I don't have anything that I need to mention, but I'll just jump on with any questions that you have.
Oscar, have you got any comment to make before I pass it to the members?
Just to say thank you very much for having us. Community Law really appreciates the support that's provided by Council. And just to pass on my thanks from Laura Drew, who is our lawyer in the Hutt. I'm her supervisor. She's not able to be here today, so just passing on her thanks as well. Kia ora.
Ngā mihi, Oscar. Any questions, members? Councillor Parkin.
Kia ora, thank you for the mahi that you're doing. It is really important, and I acknowledge that there are a number of significant contributing factors that are making this situation worse. My question is, and I think you started indicating that we are going to be doing that, but are we going to be actually tracking data in a meaningful way that is not just anecdotal evidence that we can push back with to ensure that the government is aware of the situations that they have created due to their choices in the way that they are choosing to change the goalpost, shall we say?
From our perspective, we have one contract with Hutt City Council, and we're very grateful for that contract and the ability to serve the community. We have a number of other contracts and are gathering a large amount of data. We're in conversations at the moment about us collectively counting what we're doing, and actually the tenure changes for whānau as they're coming through the services. What does that look like? The cohort of whānau we're seeing, we've got particular pain points around our kaumātua and our children and our young mums. That's a pain point for us as well. And then the security of power poverty and kai poverty that's also sitting in with us.
Councillor Barrett.
Kia ora. So with the government recent cuts on the disability sector, we've found that placement for some of the people going into residential homes has been stopped completely. A lot of the people that I deal with are older. They are over 21 and up to 60. Has any discussion been held of what's going to happen to those people if parents die or whatever and they are left homeless, really?
Takari's got an opportunity with Kāinga Water at the moment, so we're working in a partnership agreement under an MOU for the Apuni precinct new builds. We've got a number of whānau going into those 2-bedroom units of kaumātua and or their children, older children who have disabilities. There's just not enough of it, no. And we're working on a case-by-case basis to advocate for whānau with disabilities to go into Kāinga Water properties because they have opportunities through ACC to manipulate those properties to suit the people going into them. But again, there's just not enough of it.
Councillor Shaw.
Thank you for the work you do. It's really important, and we can see the challenges, and one of the biggest ones is increasing rent. I'm just thinking, do you have any sort of sway in terms of where Kāinga Water have empty houses? Are you able to sort of corral them in and use them for the Hutt Valley region in some way?
Kāinga Water have been quite active in setting up a regional table, and we're attending that table, and that's a regional placements table, and that's been really effective in getting the right people into the right homes. The issue they're having, as I understand it at the moment, is they've got a lot of vacancies and we're trying to populate those as quick as we can, and it is on a very personable level through the work with MSD as well, putting the right people into the right homes. But once those new builds are filled, this government has stopped any more building.
Any further questions? No? Well, I'll thank you all for coming in. I acknowledge the work that you've done and the partnership that we've had for council now for several years and how strong it is. I also want to comment on the note the data question, that there is, and I have seen it, there is a lot of great quality data. You'll see that starting to come through in the reports, and just ask that when it comes through on the reports that we have a good read before the meetings, that's for the next round. So just acknowledge that building the landscape is the most important thing for us for Te Awa Kairangi homelessness. I acknowledge the work that you do in the current environment where emergency housing is cut in half, where there's no more new builds happening, and we don't know where the people in emergency housing have gone. So I just acknowledge the landscape change for you on how much more difficult it's getting. So kia ora. I will get the items up on the screen. So we have 4 notings. Notes that the Te Awa Kairangi Ki Tai homeless strategy be adopted in 2019, and that as part of the contracts, the providers report quarterly, and the progress made by our kaupapa partners. And also notes that the format of the annual provider updates will change from next year to reflect the new reporting requirements introduced as part of the provider contracts and building a better landscape. So kia ora. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Barrett. Is there any comment or debate? No. So I've put the motion forward. Those in favour, please say aye. Those against, no. I declare the motion carried. Thank you. And I failed to mention that you're welcome not to have to sit through the whole meeting. So we'll now go to item 9, which is on page 37 of the agenda, and that's emergency management update. I'll ask Anthony and his support to come forward, which is Nicola Luden, Team Leader of Community Resilience and Recovery, and Jessica here, Business and Development Manager for Maremo. Welcome. I'll hand it over to you, Anthony, if there's anything more to add to your report.
Kia ora koutou. Thanks, Madam Chair, for the opportunity to report on our recent activities. I take the report as read, but would just like to comment on a few of the highlights that may have caught your attention in previous meetings. Firstly is the ongoing emphasis on developing knowledgeable, experienced and confident emergency management leaders, and that's done through frequent training and exercises. And I'm also pleased that we've managed to expand our pool of controllers and response managers, which is good for us. Secondly is the increased engagement with mana whenua through Te Tira Māori, and also recently engagement at regular quarterly meetings. We're at the kakono sort of phase at the moment, but I'm hopeful that we'll be at the mahuri in the near future. Third is our strengthening of regional and local engagements with emergency services and communities. And one of the highlights for that is discussing with the Upper Hutt City Council an intention to re-establish a Hutt Valley-wide welfare committee. Kind of aligned, certainly the delivery of up-to-date community response plans is something that has been raised on a number of occasions, and we're pleased to be able to put in place a plan that's going to see a much more timely response to that, and that's all about being in a position to activate our community emergency hubs and community-led response to emergencies. And lastly, just acknowledging RT18, the Hutt City Emergency Response Team. They've achieved national accreditation, which should give us quite a bit of confidence in their ability to respond to storms, floods, and the like in our community, and indeed regionally and across the motu. Happy to take any questions.
Kia ora, thank you, Anthony. Before I open it to some pātai, Jessica and Nicola, do you have any brief comments to make?
No, just that if you have any specific questions around the community emergency hubs or community response plans, I'm definitely the person to ask.
Te pātai tōna mima, Councillor Parkin.
Kia ora, thank you for the mahi. Interesting list of hazards. Just wondering how that compares to previous years. Do we have analysis of that? Do we look at it and compare where we're tracking? Are we increasing our risk, or is it decreasing?
I think we're quite fortunate with the winter period. We didn't seem to have as many events as we've experienced certainly a couple of years ago. We had a number of sort of minor flood events, certainly heavy rain and slips. So we're unscathed. Obviously, there's summer is concerning in terms of water supply, and we've got measures in place to help out if that should occur.
Follow-up question, Councillor Parkin.
Yeah, follow up on that water supply. Good to see that we've got the 500, 200 litre emergency water tanks for sale this summer. Just wondering how many that compares to how many did we sell last summer? And obviously we were very much supply limited from that. How's that tracking?
Yeah, so last summer we sold about that amount, but we were sort of reliant on receiving 96 tanks per week. And if there were problems with supply, that affected our ability to on-sale to the community. So this pool, on top of weekly supplies, should see us through the summer much more effectively than last year.
Councillor Tupou and then Councillor Shaw.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question, Anthony, is firstly, are each of our marae fully equipped with the shipping containers or emergency gear? And then the second question is, are we working with schools or rangatahi to embed this whole, I know we usually run exercise programs in the hubs, but I think it's important because it's the next generation, if we embed that culture of emergency preparedness and awareness, then that sort of mitigates a lot of the cluelessness in an emergency.
Kia ora for that. I'll answer the first part of the question, then I'll refer over to Nikki, who can address your questions about schools and other ongoing training. So Waifetu Marae has a container, and that was funded through TPK, Kokiri. So they're the only ones that have that capability, but we're able to support other marae if they make applications to take that on. Sorry, Nikki.
Yes, I was going to, just to add to that, so Te Puni Kokiri set the funding criteria for those marae emergency kits, which we were only able to support maraes with their application. So that's something that they hold. But my team in particular, we are working with local marae or trying to work better and closer with local marae. So that is something as part of baked into our work program for this year. In terms of the schools, yes, definitely we are working with schools. As an example of Shakeout, we were at a number of schools across the Hutt Valley supporting them with reunification drills. Part of our work program this year is also piloting and testing new ways of updating our community response plans as part of those hubs. So we've been testing that through working through the Principals Collective, Board of Trustees, and also the ECE, the Early Childcare Education Centres as well. Because as we know, getting communities to come out of their home and attend a 2-3 hour workshop to update their community response plan can be incredibly hard, just because they've got other priorities, and emergency preparedness is another thing on the to-do list. So we're looking at ways that we can work better alongside some of those community leaders. So I guess my team will also be linking out to you guys as well as advocates within your communities around how you can help support and share that kind of message out in the community. Does that answer your question? Cool.
Thank you. Any final questions? Councillor Shaw?
You've already answered the question I had about marae, but the other question I had was about schools. On a walk around of Pomari School once, I was a little bit surprised to see the emergency mobile generator still based there. So is that a resource that's available to all community, and is it on your list of things to use in an emergency?
So that generator was one of two that was purchased a number of years ago, and a decision was taken at that time to dispose of those capabilities. Unfortunately, because of where it sits in our work priorities, we haven't got around to that yet. but that's the intention. So we keep quite a light footprint in terms of capabilities that council manages, because there will never be enough, whereas out in the community, that's where the real resource can be found.
Kia ora. If there's no further questions, e whakatakoto ana au I te mōtini, I'll move the motion that the committee receives and notes the report. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Morgan. Those in favour, please say aye. Those against, no. I declare the motion carried. Thank you. Kia ora. We will now move to page 8 of the agenda, which is Te Herenga Kairangi first 6 months progress report. And I'll ask Kanahi, Butler Hari and Holly Haupapa. Kia ora. Kia ora kōrua. And Holly.
Tēnā tātou. Today we are delivering the first Te Herenga Kairangi report, which covers council mahi from February through to September of 2024. I will take you through some quick background and then Kanahi will share some of tā mātou highlights and we'll cover off the next steps after that. So the purpose of Te Herenga Kairangi is to support council to deliver better outcomes for Māori in our community and to set a direction for council that flows through to investment decisions. This rautaki has a 6 monthly reporting requirement and the reporting purpose is to monitor progress against the rautaki. So a quick recap, in February of this year at this meeting we agreed that the first Te Herenga Kairangi report would be at the November CCP meeting, so innate, here we are today. As Te Herenga Kairangi coincides with long-term plan timing, we've been developing this report with the available data. The current format is aligned to the existing quarterly reporting format that usually goes to the Policy, Finance and Strategy Committee meetings. We have also socialised this first report, with our Tākai Here partners at recent quarterly mana whenua hui. Right, Kanahi.
Tēnā koe Holly, tēnā koutou katoa. Just to cover off a few highlights for the Rautaki report this round, there's been quite a bit of focus in improving the water quality as set by our mana whenua partners, and also a few discussions around the district plan review. Lastly, a lot of mahi in the housing support space, so those have been some key topics from mana whenua as well as our hapori Māori, but atu I tērā, mihi ana kia koutou.
Tēnā kōrua, he pātai tō ngā mema? Carl? I'll note that there's a hard copy on beside you. Now that's of the strategy. So the report is in the wider package. I just encourage you to read the strategy. It's amazing. Mahi has gone into that, particularly telling the story. So I acknowledge all the work that's been done and thank you both, and thank you for the work that you've done. He whakatakoto ana au I te mōtini. I move the motion, and if we could get it put up. That the committee receives and notes the information that notes the progress made against the outcomes and actions identified in Te Herenga Kairangi and approves the Te Herenga Kairangi 6 monthly report. Mā wai I tautoko. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Parkin. Te tohi tō tētahi. Is there any comments or debate? Councillor Te.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to thank both Kanahi, Holly and Te Tira Māori for the effort that's gone into I think measuring those priorities and outcomes, which is something new, Madam Chair, under that strategy. And it's good that we can monitor across the progress in upholding the mana of this whenua. So just want to acknowledge that. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Deputy Mayor Lewis.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this report and the strategy. I'm just finding that out in the community, more people are asking questions and are inquiring more about relationships. I shared something with Kanahi in the artefacts and historical aspect of our space in the environment, and in residential areas, people are wanting to know what was there before and to have it identified. So having somewhere to go and to talk to people has been so important. So I just thank you that this is in place. Thank you.
I've moved the motion, it's been seconded. So all those in favour say aye. All those against? I declare the motion carried. Kia ora. We will now go to Whakatupu Ngaingai, page 21 of the agenda, and Andrew Quinn. Kia ora. Aere mai ki mua.
Tēnā koe, Madam Chair. This is the October update for Whakatupu Ngaingai. Pleased to say that everything's on track with pool and fitness. Contractors working extra hours over the weekend, and we have a few night shifts currently working. We're busy, very busy actually in the reception space at the moment. That's the last piece to finish off. We'll also see in the next few days or so the post whenua being installed on the outside of the pool, and the rest of the external work. So working feverishly towards getting complete and being open in time for Wednesday the 4th of December and the community event on the 7th. So that's all good. In terms of the other part, or the third part of the project, that's Walter Mildenhall Park. We're currently out to tender at the moment, waiting to receive those, or reveal those tender prices. We'll move to a preferred contractor before we get to Christmas time, and then it will be full steam ahead with that project. Everything else is going according to plan, so take any questions from the floor. Thank you.
Te pātai tōna mema. Councillor Shaw.
Thanks, Andrew. And there's a high level of excitement out there at the moment. There really is. My question is about paragraph 4 on page 21. Remaining drawdowns were stated 4, 5 and 6. And turning over to the next page, remaining tasks are to test and commission the main plant. So is that, all of that will be done after the opening of the event and the pool's in use? Or is this Walter Mildenhall?
Pardon me. It's the final drawdown of CIP milestones. We're not able to do that until we get to test and commissioning complete, practical completion complete, and all of the integrated testing complete. Condition of our being able to draw down the funding milestone is meeting those milestones effectively because of the push to get to completion. Those last 3 milestones will all occur at the same time. We'll draw down that money in December when we're finished.
Councillor Parkin.
Kia ora, thank you for the mahi. This has been a pleasure to watch evolve. I'm not sure this one is necessarily directed at you, so somebody else may need to pick it up. But have we started familiarising the public with the fact that Huia will be closed for a fairly significant period of time, or correction, a section of Huia will be closed for a fairly significant period of time? I think we're looking at 6 months at the moment. So.
Yeah, I can't answer that question directly, but I understand that comms are being spread widely about what's happening with Huia, the fact that we're moving Huia staff over to Ngaingai whilst we start up, and then we'll start to recruit in Huia Pool itself.
I'll just ask Andrea, Director, to comment.
Comms to users of Huia Pool started a couple of months ago, and so to individual groups that have bookings and to people who are regular users. About a month ago, we started comms to casual users of the pool, and we also have now social media posts about this and information in the Hutt News. I think just last week we had something in the Hutt News, and we've got another 2 lots of information going out through the Hutt News between now and then. So we've got some, in the next few weeks, some quite extensive comms around that, but regular users have been aware for a couple of months.
Any other questions? No, I'll get the motion put up on the screen. And if you just can read that, that the committee notes and receives and notes information and notes the following of A and B that you can see up on screen. Do I have a seconder? Deputy Mayor Lewis? I'll put the motion forward. Those in favour, please say aye. Those against, no. I declare the motion carried. Good. Thank you, Andrew. Move on to the 6-month update, and that's on page 29 of the agenda. I'll ask Lauren and Matthew McKenzie to come forward. And if there's anything further to add to the report. Oh, okay.
Good afternoon, councillors. Just introduce myself and my team in particular. I'll just pass over. I've had two new FTEs, two new positions with both Cez and Ms Brannigan and Ms Jansen. I'll just get the two to introduce themselves.
Kia ora, my name's Cez. I've recently joined full-time in the position at the police station doing CCTV for the council.
Tēnā tātou e te iwi, ana mihi nui mō tō taima i tēnei ahi. Ko wai au, ko waiwau te awa, no Africa ki te tonga ahau. E tupu aki ahau i Waitohi, ki Wainui Amata tuku kāinga anai nei. Ko Jansen Papali i oku whānau ingoa, ko Amy Jansen tuku ingoa. He kai whakahaere e kaupapa city safety ahau. Nō reira, tēnā tātou katoa. I am on week 8 being part of the council. I'm really excited to be here. I do come from Fens, where I was in the kaupapa Māori space, looking at cultural capability. But I come from the best suburb of Wainui Amata, been there for the last 12 years, and I've got 3 children. So I'm looking after the rangatahi crime space, and it's something I'm really passionate about as well. So it's lovely to meet you all.
I would just carry on with some of the points within the paper itself. One of the primary concerns is probably I've mentioned a couple of times is the change of offending dynamic for youth in the city. What is of concern is it's the first time both OT and police have recognised this as well. So we've had a change where the offending group for young people with high serious volume offences was about 16, 17, 18. It's now 11, 12, 13. So our strategies for prevention need to be 8, 9, 10. We don't know if this is nationally. Police and OT are still doing their numbers, but it's the first time they've recognised that change in dynamic. I've never seen it before, to be honest, and hopefully it's not nationally. The concern for us is that we will have prolonged interactions with courts, youth aid and things like that. It's hard to, when we talk about voluntary offences, car theft in particular, or theft from car, a lot of juveniles are doing that. Restrictions on their movement can't be done under the legislation. Police will have trouble. They know who they are, but they are bound by legislation in the process under OT. So just to be wary of that. So we might have a prolonged offending pattern in the city which we haven't seen before, but it will take intervention at such a younger age now. Now that pans into the 99 project, which is a 6-month project targeted at young children. The reason they were targeted, we've been speaking, I understand the Mayor's been briefed under the Public Service Commission around family violence. So of concern for the Valley is family violence equates for 52% of all the Wellington region. So that's Kapiti, over the hill, Porirua, Wellington. We account for 50%. When we break those numbers down again, Nainai, Wainui contribute to 70% of domestic violence in this city. Of concern is we've seen the offending pattern is linked to family violence. That's why Nainai was chosen. That pilot project has schools nominate their high-risk kids or kids in need. So it's just a pilot project. We're looking at proof of concept. We're still waiting for the numbers. but Police, OT and Public Service Commission has recognised a change in offending pattern and an increase in family violence, which is of concern. Secondly, just for strategic level, some of you might know about the crime triangle. Simply for any crime to happen, you need an offender, a victim, an opportunity or a location. This is scalable. All things have to be, to get a crime to happen, all things converge. If you take out one of those pieces or shake them, you can change the whole dynamic. So Bunny Street, we still have offenders and victims in the same place, a transport hub, but because of the change in the bus shelter itself, you've removed that location. This team is based on those 3 points with Amy doing the victims, says with offenders, and I'll be looking for opportunities and locations. But it's scalable and worked before, and it's got a lot of research behind it, but it's easy to convey to the public too, particularly for our strategic partners and either Māori wardens, community patrols, and neighbourhood support. Any other questions?
Kia ora, thank you for that and welcome on board, korua. Any questions, members? Councillor Shaw.
Thank you for the great work, and I just want to quickly mention Kia Hau Maru. That was really positively received, and I'm really pleased to see that a session's going to be run tomorrow at the Walton Ash for the northern suburbs. That's great. Look, just on my way down today for this meeting, I witnessed a pretty concerning event between 2 people with obvious mental health issues. How much support, there's a growing mental health issue out there, and most of your work's around crime-related stuff. How much support do you get for those particular issues that seem to be more prevalent?
It's a topical subject, isn't it, Ave? I'm just talking to one experience for Stokes Valley. We spent between us probably about 20 hours over a 2-week period dealing with one person. Manifests itself in antisocial behaviour. They had already been given a house, working with police. Ultimately, it was the difference trying to get through to mental health, which required essentially multiple police arrests. And we're having issues around accommodation for temporary and emergency housing. We're having trouble where we're not being offered accommodation like we used to if the person has a mental illness. They're pushing back and saying that they cannot maintain tenancy, and there's other people on the list. So I'm going to catch 22 when I call mental health. They're asking me for an address. I can't get an address because they've got mental health. So this has been probably in the last 6 months, that context or dynamic is starting to change. So access to accommodation has become pretty hard, resulting in Amy and I doing ringing all sorts of people and doing things in the background. We don't have that support of the legislation behind it, so it's really hard, but it's manifesting every day. And what I'm seeing, and when I talk to health and safety, I'll have to ask Stephen about that. I want to see possibly if there has been an escalation, but literally between us, one person would take 20 hours of 2 people, calling, finding, tracking, calling police, all sorts of things.
Councillor Tupou.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mecca, I just want to acknowledge Cez, who I think you've been involved with CCTV for quite a few years now with council, and Amy, and I think these are 2 very good appointments in the safety space. Just coming off the back of what you mentioned on the mental health front, so I've got 2 questions. The first is the difficulties with police now, their engagement, now being sort of they're no longer engaging with mental health. What impact is that having on our service? And the second question is, just because I just punched in from September last year to this year on the crime snapshot through the police, but it's painting a different picture from what's in our report, because it's saying that crime's actually increased by 97. So that might be my side, that maybe we just need to double check that, but just to be accurate with our, what we're putting out there. Because I looked in the report, I'm thinking, oh, I didn't realise, but then on the actual website it's saying no, there has been an increase. So those are my 2 questions.
Firstly, the police stats are backdated. So that timeframe for the stats was till September, so obviously they've just loaded the most additional ones. What I talked to last time was black crime, essentially undiscovered and unreported crime in the community. I think that's happening. And there's also a term called grey crime, which I'm seeing in the numbers as well. Grey crime is representative charge. Instead of laying 200 charges for fraud, I say Betty committed fraud from the 1st of April to the April 28th. And sometimes that's not captured in the stats. When I talk to Kia Homa, the retailers see that they are not loading any reports of theft because it takes them too long. And that's a concern for them. Police have got pushed back on that and said, if you don't report it, we can't resource it. So we're at that catch-22 with particularly with the smaller retailers. I don't have the time, I don't have the staff. I'm open for extended hours. It's only a chocolate bar. So we have that sort of concept. For mental health, there has been a definitely pushback from police about resourcing and spending time. Getting to talk to the Stokes Valley incident, it took maybe 4 or 5 phone calls over probably 10 days to get a result from police to elevate it. Secondly, their demand already, when we talked about family violence, just family violence alone is a concerning logistical thing for police, to put it as bluntly as possible. So when you add a 2-hour, 3-hour mental health call out, so when we spoke, we had to get hold of Upper Hutt Police, they deal with Stokes Valley. We were lucky to get a community council to come down and spend 2 or 3 hours with this individual to make that breakthrough. And realistically, that can't be maintained, and an exception because he was the daily incidents. But without that intervention from her, that was the tipping block for the mental health. We got more information out of him than we had for the previous, I suppose, my 10 visits prior to that, because they were able to sit down for a prolonged period. The catch-22.
Great. Just one follow-up, Madam Chair, if that's right.
Very
very
quick.
brief.
You've already asked 2 questions, so very quick one. Thank you.
Okay, just very quick. Is it right to say that our focus, because we used to have that very on-the-ground focus, in terms of the Safe City Ambassadors, have we now shifted to this sort of specialisation?
One of the key things for us is one, we had a reactive response under Manutaki, but we didn't affect the drivers of crime. So this team here is about the drivers of crime. It's going to take a lot longer. It's going to be a little bit uglier, but we're going for a long-term solution. So we are starting suburbs where we've put assets and interest into, but not seen a real change in the offending and the victimisation in those suburbs. So the idea, particularly Amy's got a bigger package, but Manu, Taki were a Band-Aid. We continue to have, we didn't look at the drivers of crime. So we're starting to reach into those higher levels regionally with OT and police to look at and combining resources, which we haven't done previously.
Thank you. Councillor Barrett.
Kia ora tātou. Just recently I attended a coffee with a cop, which was really great. Horrified to learn of the statistics that are happening in our city. Just the very next day, our brand new CCTV cameras all around our building were stolen. And what absolutely intrigued me the most is that the young guy that did it was so blatant, was in the middle of the day, and his face was right there where you could see it. Would you say, in your opinion, that people have become more blatant, that they don't care what time of day? If they've got it in their minds, they're just going to do it?
We talked about a change in the offending dynamic for youth, but we've also been speaking with retailers and nationally speaking with the Retail Association. We used to have theft without an assault or without a threat. Something's changed out of there, and I don't know what the correlation is, but that's the turnover of their biggest risk now is threats of violence or threats or violence itself. So that was never a dynamic before, and it's been changed. And like with the youth thing, that's only in the last 2 years. Something's happened after COVID, which we can't explain or hasn't been explained yet, has happened. And I know when talking to the national body for retail crime and things like that, their turnover is around 45% for these anchor stores, and they can't maintain it. So they're doing a bigger focus on that. of resilience and culture and security, things like that. But yes, there's been a change in dynamic in the city, but ultimately there's always that 5-10% that are career criminals, long-term persistent offenders. They're not going to stop. So they're a little bit disproportionate, but I'm more worried about the youth and particularly that theft occurrence where I get an assault or a threat, or I'm too scared to come into work today because something happened yesterday.
Thank you, Matthew. If we have no further questions, I'll move the motion that the committee receives and notes the information. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Barrett. I've put the motion forward, so all those in favour say aye. All those against no. I declare the motion carried. Thank you, Matthew and team, and all the best with your mahi. We'll now move to item 10, which is the Rangatahi Youth Engagement Update, page 55, and Lauren. And we also have our new member in the Rangatahi. So I'll hand it over to you, Lauren, if there's anything extra to add to the report that the members have read.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Now we're just mostly pleased to provide an update to the Rangatahi youth engagement and introduce our newly appointed Rangatahi community facilitator, Nat MacDonald. Natalie joined our team recently following a meeting of the long-term plan subcommittee in early June, and her role is guided by the Rangatahi action plan, which was adopted earlier this year. Implementing this role underscores Council's dedication to uplifting the voice of Rangatahi, and Natalie, who I'll hand over to introduce herself, not only brings extensive experience in community work, but a genuine passion for empowering young people in our city. She will act as a bridge between Council and Rangatahi, ensuring that youth perspectives are embedded in Council processes, priorities and decisions. Natalie's work plan in the paper introduces a range of initiatives to advance the action plan's goals, including developing education to deepen young people's understanding of civic engagement, forming partnerships with sector leaders to create innovative ways for Rangatahi to engage with their communities, and to support youth-led projects that empower Rangatahi to lead change within our neighbourhoods. I'll hand over Nat to introduce herself, and then we're happy to take any questions. Kia ora.
Is it on? Tēnā koutou katoa, ngā mihi nui kia koutou o te rānei. Ko Natalie Makitānara tōku ingoa. Kia ora. Hello, nice to meet you all. I have seen a couple of you on posters and cars, and I've met a few of you in person, which has been awesome. I'm just super excited to be in this space and be kind of, I was thinking before listening to our kaimahi from Youth Inspire and listening to just Macca there, and also having a few conversations with you all. I'm excited to be in a space where rangatahi are front of mind. It's awesome to see. I come from Levin, and I was a full-time youth worker for 2.5 years, and I worked with Horowhenua District Council for another 2.5 just in the call centre. And so my grassroots are kind of in youth work and in council, and seeing where those two intersect and how beautiful the mahi can be when they do it right. And I'm excited, I'm going to keep saying that word, to see that this seems to be a space where the people in power are excited to create more space for our young people. You've already created this space, which is my role, which I'm very honoured, excited, and privileged to occupy at the moment. But I just hope that we can keep moving on a similar trajectory, because this is leaps and bounds. Having an action plan in place and having a designated role dedicated to our rangatahi is more than a lot of other regions, areas, councils have. So props to you guys. And I'm excited to work with you all.
Kia ora, Nat. Thank you. And we are super excited to have you here. And we met you earlier, and it's, yeah, there's some great mahi ahead. Any questions, members? Deputy Mayor Lewis.
Thank you. Welcome aboard. It's exciting to have you here. I'd just like to know, where's your starting point? I can see your first action, but what do you think in yourself where you're going to be starting?
Exciting. So thank you. Thank you for the warm welcome. What I'm hoping to bring as a set of fresh eyes to the Hutt. I have moved to Wellington. I'm living in Wadestown, and so I'm brand spanking new. I'm looking at everything from an unjaded point of view and just doing an initial assessment. I've been here for 8 weeks, started at the same time as Amy. And what I've read so far is there is a real need for safe spaces for our young people. What that looks like is different for every young person, but there is a lack of physical spaces that are inclusive and inviting for our young people, other than schools, sports clubs, and a few awesome youth organizations scattered across the region. But there's a connection that seems to be missing across all of them, and a central hub for our young people to feel like they belong and feel like it is their space. And we've got 9 hubs and libraries that are supposed to be community spaces, which I would like to see turned into more youth-friendly spaces. They are open to everybody and everybody can use them, but not everybody feels necessarily welcome or like they belong in those spaces. So I think that's a good place to start. It fits well with the action plan and trying to engage with our young people and get them using the spaces and the services that council provide. So that is hopefully a good place to start. And I don't plan on starting from ground zero because there's some awesome work going on with different organizations and different spaces already. It's just being that link between them and other community organizations that they might not necessarily know exist, or services and places and spaces that council has and can resource, but they don't know that that is a resource that they can use. So I'm really wanting to be the bridge for people in that space, if that answers your question.
Kia ora, Nat. Any final questions? No. There's no further questions. I'll move the motion, if we could get the motion put up on the screen. That the committee notes that it adopted the Rangatahi Engagement Action Plan on the 1st of May, notes that the FTE position of Rangatahi Community Facilitator was agreed and funded by council as part of the long-term plan, and notes that the 2024-25 work plan has been developed, which will be reported back every 6 months. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Briggs. Those in favour? Is there any comment or debate? I'll just add, welcome, and you can see that there's a lot of interest in the position, interested in, we've had Youth Inspire today. There is some very big challenges happening for youth, for rangatahi and Te Awa Kairangi, and to have your new lens come in is really helpful, so thank you. So I've put the motion forward. Those in favour, please say aye. Those against, no. I declare the motion carried. Thank you, Koroa. We will move to item 11, Neighbours and Communities Focus Area, which is Taita Pōmari. Lauren, if there's anything new to add to the report, and Shaun. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Thank you, Chair. Kia ora koutou katoa, here to present the latest update on Council's engagement with the Taita Pōmari communities, guided by the Neighbourhoods and Communities Strategic Framework. Framework emphasises place-based approach, fostering inclusivity, safety, resilience and well-being, particularly through community-led development. This report highlights key updates including housing developments, youth engagement efforts and community initiatives like He Pōwai's Māra Ora Kaupapa in Pōmari and the Pōmari Park redevelopment. Through our neighbourhood facilitators, we're not just making initial connections anymore, but reconnecting residents, local groups and council resources to ensure community needs are met. The report also showcases collaborative successes both internally at council and externally in the neighbourhood. I'd like to honour the recent passing of a beloved community champion, Anaru Moke, who most knew as FATS. I found out over these last few weeks that FATS was an instrumental part in shaping the Walter Nash Centre, supporting setting its culture and advising some of the team. One of the events he cared deeply about was Christmas in the Hood, which is highlighted in our report. December 15th will be the first one without FATS. And so on behalf of our Pōmari whānau, we extend the invitation to you to come and celebrate Christmas with us in Pōmari. We know that FATS's legacy is felt through the warmth and strength he brought to our community, and his loss is one that we all feel profoundly. In the last few years, this neighbourhood has also lost Whaia Serena Nicholson, who was a founder of Whānau Family Support Services Trust, and Auntie Rose Tuita'ali'i from Taita College. Both were extraordinary leaders who worked tirelessly to improve outcomes for whānau and creating meaningful pathways that uplifted many in our community. Also really want to acknowledge Councillor Shaw and the mahi that you do in our Northern Ward. It is such a privilege to travel alongside of you, Whaia, and the fact that you are somebody who turns up consistently and picks up a tea towel while you're around. That there for me and for a lot of people in our Northern Ward epitomises what service and leadership looks like. So just want to honour you, Whaia. And also wanting to acknowledge our Youth Inspire whānau today. The bonus is that the rangatahi space and the neighbourhood that they exist within is both at the table today. So thank you, friends. It's a privilege to travel with you guys, and it's exciting to see what it will look like as we move forward together. On a personal note, I want to acknowledge my own connection to this neighbourhood. I grew up here, I went to Taita College, I played netball on the Taita courts and many ventures in the ngāhere behind Taita College. Growing up in a family that didn't always have access to a vehicle, we are deeply rooted in our neighbourhood, and it's a privilege to now serve this community who has shaped me into who I am. Just to provide a bit of an update on some things that have unfolded since this paper was written, you'll see briefly in the director's report is the storyboard Hikoi project at Walter Nash Park. This project is honouring our young community members who we think of a young person whose name was Muhammad, a 9-year-old Syrian boy who passed over the school holidays recently. He was a frequent visitor to the park, and this project and others like it are for our young people, our tamariki, and their whānau who deserve spaces that nurture and celebrate them. The storyboard Hikoi, created in partnership with Sue Ray and Common Ground, is an interactive initiative combining physical movement, literacy, and cultural identity. The storyboards are designed to reflect the richness of Māori and Pacific narratives in Taita, with rotating local stories that encourage exploration and connection with the park. Through this project, we're not only honouring the past, but ensuring that the park remains a vibrant community resource, shaped by stories and contributions from our people, including our local schools. We're excited that our rangatahi and our tamariki in Taira and Pōmari will be able to contribute to the storyboards of stories of themselves and their whānau, or maybe even our elected members. This morning I spoke with Whaia Sue, who can't be here today as she's at Walter Nash Park continuing her work. She asked me to emphasise today a principle that's close to her heart: collaboration. To her, collaboration is only meaningful when it is paired with action. Too often people speak of collaboration but don't follow through, and she highlights how competition for funding is continuing to create silos that hinder real cohesive progress. Whaia Sue is a weaver in our community, connecting different worlds, from our Filipino friends visiting family from the Philippines, to gang members playing with their tamariki, to local aunties and uncles filling the pātaka. Her passion brings together groups who would otherwise never cross paths. Whaia Sue and others in our neighbourhoods have asked that I open up a pathway for you, our elected members, to connect directly with the community in ways that honour their spaces and voices. We would be honoured to work with you in facilitating interactions that let you hear directly from the people who are breathing life into our neighbourhoods. Ngā mihi te whānau and ini pātai.
Kia ora, thank you. Does any member have a question? Councillor Shaw.
Thank you for your kind words, Shannon. I got really excited when I read this report because there's so much goodness in it. And I'm particularly interested in the insights because it highlights a lot of stuff that we as a council have to think seriously about where our investment goes. And that's around housing intensification, health needs, the fact that the suburbs become a multicultural and social hotspot, I can call it. So the insights really help us think about where we're going to put our money. But I do have a question, and I'll speak again in debate. So Taita Pōmari, but in the report, it's called Taita North and Taita South, and there's another suburb there called Wingate, which is industrial and has residents. Are they included as part of this whole report, or will they be included as part of that area? Or what I'm saying is, where did Pōmari go to? Taita North and Taita South? Pōmari should be mentioned there in the report somewhere.
Aye. So through you, Chair, my understanding is that in like census and the data sort of realm of things, is that Taita as a whole, from about Wingate sort of bridge roundabout to the end of Pōmari, is Taita in its fullest. From about Taita shops is north, is counted in as Taita North, and then from the shops is Taita South. And I'm not too sure how Wingate fits in where the boundary lines of what that might look like.
That's right.
I think you're right. That would be related to that data, but it'd be really nice to see Pōmari's in brackets or slash Taita North. There's another really interesting place there, Learning Connection, which is an amazing art centre. And I'd like that to be added as part of your report too as well, because out of that comes some wonderful stuff, for next time. But yeah, your report's fantastic. I'll speak to that in debate. Thank you.
Was there a question out of that, Councillor? No? No. Any further questions? Any further questions? Councillor Tupou.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and yes, moi mai rā, Fats. Just the storyboard, and it's exciting to hear those sorts of things, because I think we need to, how do we capture, those contributors, those characters like Sue Ray, like Fats and others, so that those who in the future and even in the present who enjoy what they have, like Christmas in the Hood, can actually appreciate, this is where these are the sort of the pioneers of some of these kaupapa. So that's good to hear. And just asking me, is that going to capture those characters? Is he going to be sort of a now forward, or do we look at some of the historical, I don't know how far back we'd go?
Whatever's going to work alongside of the literacy program, particularly in our primary and intermediates, is what are the stories that our tamariki want to tell, whether it's about our neighbourhood or whether it's about people in the neighbourhood. That's up to our tamariki, I think. I wouldn't want to override and say this is what you have to tell us, or these are the stories that you have to tell. You have your own stories. We're just giving you a space to tell them.
Kia ora. Any final questions? Oh. Thank you both. I'll move the motion that the committee receives and notes the information. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Barrett. I've moved the motion. Before we get to that, do I have any comment or debate? Councillor Shaw.
Yeah, we're certainly going to miss Fats this year at Christmas in the Hood. I think at last year's one, he was the anchor for, it was men versus women. And he was obviously at the men's end, and I believe you and I were at the other end, and the woman won. So, but anyway, we certainly are. Yeah, I just want to thank you, Shannon, for your work connecting the community. I think it's a really good title. I think it's happened. You're able to weave your kaupapa amongst all the groups there, some of them struggling a little bit, with volunteers and doing important work of their own. So appreciate that. I thought the report was really positive. And there are a couple of things I do want to highlight and thank people for. And I'm a bit one-eyed here, but one of them is the Hutt Sports Awards, which really is the best in New Zealand. Most of you have been to it for one night. Probably one of the few shows where we've got prime ministers ringing up to make sure they've got a ticket for this for next year. But it was the Sports Awards that created that wonderful opportunity for Symphony in the Hutt. And I think those two, along with the Hutt Multifest, are easily my most favourite and biggest events in the Hutt Valley. And of course, they're there for all people, not just the northern region. In particular, I want to thank Ken Laban, Liz Rapu, former manager of the Sports Hall, and Joni Ariti, who have contributed all voluntarily to make these huge events so successful. And as far as the Hutt Multifest goes, 15,000 people over 8 shows is huge, celebrating Māori Pacifica cultures. And there was Barbara Hay, one of the earlier instigators of it, of the Multifest, now the crafts lady. And yes, we did have a Petone Wharf fishing craft at this year's event, and it was wonderful. And of course, Viola Tuitalili. But again, just to thank you. I look forward to Christmas in the Hood and also the opening of the Pomari Park. I see that little piece of green space is really well frequented and occupied by the people of Pomari. So, great report. Thank you.
Councillor Barrett.
Kia ora, Chair. Very, very briefly, and I'd just like to say this is what community should look like, with great people behind them leading the way. I really want to very briefly just thank you for acknowledging not only FATS, but my very dear friend, Whaia Serena Nicholson, who was a pioneer in working for whānau. So kia ora.
Kia ora for that, Councillor Barrett. So thank you for that really in-depth and great update, Shannon. It's fantastic. I've put the motion forward. Have a seconder. Those in favour, please say aye. Those against, no. I declare the motion carried. Kia ora. Okay, so we'll move on to item 12, information items, Neighbourhoods and Communities Directors Reports on page 97. Anything you wish to add before I put it to questions, Andrea?
Thank you, Chair. I would just note that we have picked up where we left off in terms of visitation to all of our spaces this year, which is fantastic. Really good numbers in the first quarter. Welcoming Week, there's quite a bit in there about a number of successful events that were bringing our diverse community together, and that was a real highlight. And also you'll see good progress being made on the Parks and Reserves, a big CapEx program, and we have the Head of Parks and Reserves with us today if anyone has any questions about any of those projects.
Any questions, members? Councillor Tupou.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just the question in the report, just on the staffing update in terms of those main areas like LGBT, seniors, disabled, kai. With sort of that, because I know that our team out there do a lot of work with the Pacific and ethnic communities, or is that sort of interwoven with those main areas?
So we have 4 roles that are based around managing relationships with communities of interest, and they have a number of different portfolios across them. Some of them are lucky enough to have one portfolio. So, for example, Rangatahi, we have one full FTE on that, but others we have one person who might be managing 3 or 4 different portfolios. Pacifica is a portfolio, obviously the new migrants and refugees. We also have the support of the Welcoming Communities program, and so we're able to put a bit more time into that. So the amount of kind of attention we're able to give each community will depend on the resource level we have, and as I say, some of them are able to do a bit more than others.
Any other questions? No. Okay, so I'll move the motion that the committee receives and notes the information, and notes that M. Lewis, the Executive Director of NICO, will attend the meeting to talk about the work. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Tupou. I've put the motion forward and seconded. So those in favour, please say aye. Those against, no. I declare the motion carried. So we will go now to the committee forward program, which is on page 120 of the agenda. He pātai tōna mema. No questions, so I'll move the motion that the Forward Program 2025 in the Communities, Culture and Partnerships Committee be received and noted. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Morgan. I've put the motion forward, it's been seconded. Those in favour, please say aye. Those against, no. I declare the motion carried. I've received no questions, so we will go to our closing formalities, and if the karakia could please be put up. Please join me, inoi tātou. Mai te tohi rangi ki te tohu nuku, te aho i roto, marama i roto, tupu mauri ora ki te whai ao ki te ao marama. Haumie, hui e, tae ki e.